Casey, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what you had mentioned last week, and I thought it was quite profound, quite profound.
That's why I love this kind of stuff, because it just gets people thinking, but
you just got to go with the flow.
I'm really open to giving them different options.
I'm really leaning towards putting up the alphabet on one wall and numbers on another.
Know when they see you, they're going to feel just a little bit lighter.
That, you know, they kind of make their own essential agreements.
I even thought about paper, like, you know, because paper's cheap and disposable.
I want to accomplish having a blast, getting some giggles and some laughs, and having them see me smile and laugh with them. And
in the past, when I've went outside with, you know, kinder and first graders, I mean, it's more space. It's just crazy.
Your kids are going to have nightmares about unhappy gym floors and gym walls.
Yes.
I clean tables at lunch.
I'm just trying to pull anything I can think of without equipment.
One of my personal goals the first week of school is for the kids to feed off my energy and feed off my enthusiasm, not my fear.
Yeah, how are we going to move through the hall? How are we going to keep our distance through the hall?
Do they have to wear masks?
I don't even know if I'm going to have assigned. I don't know. I usually have. I don't know.
And I thought it was quite profound.
Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because PHYED is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson.
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
And it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey. Hey, welcome to another edition of Thinking PE. Stacy, do you know what I'm thinking?
Jamie, what are you thinking?
I am thinking about Labor Day weekend, and you know, taking that one last vacation and what I'm going to be doing. And then it hit me. Kids coming to class on Tuesday, and I better be ready.
Yeah, you better be. You've got really live children that are actually coming, not virtual children. They're really live, and they're really going to show up in your gym, or at least outside where you're going to see them. And you better be ready. What does that mean for you?
You know, it's been a wild ride this summer, and we started talking about this hashtag 6VP thing back in June, and now here again in August. So I've kind of been doing a lot of thinking of what I've been doing, but now you got to start thinking about why am I going to be doing that?
Yeah, I think that's really important. The thinking behind the thinking. I mean, we call this darn podcast, we call it Thinking PE for a reason. It's because you and I kind of geek out on that kind of thing. We love to get behind the actual activities, because the activities are really good, but we can often learn more by hearing why a teacher chose something, why a teacher you chose that game versus that game. I mean, you mentioned this on earlier podcasts. These first couple of days with the kids are really potentially really critical, because we might not have a half a year or a full year before you have to go to distance learning. You don't know. So I think it's really important that you bring that up, that we need to take a full advantage of these first days, especially day number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything's, and that's why initially during our discussion here, we do hear a lot of the what teachers are doing, and we have to ask some of those probing questions to pull out the why, because people are still grasping at what they're going to do, because things are changing so rapidly.
Yeah, it is. It's true. And it is hard. And it's kind of unfair to ask somebody to get into the nitty gritty of a lesson plan when it's several days out and they're still not able to nail it down because they don't even know all the restrictions yet. So with this interview, it was pretty interesting listening to these different teachers talk and really get into asking, why did you do this? Why did you choose this activity? Why did you choose that one? So I'm hoping the listeners will listen kind of for that, listen behind the words to, I don't know. I've kind of mentioned this to you earlier, that sometimes you learn more by just listening to how somebody thinks rather than just trying to duplicate what they do. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a pretty profound statement right there by you again. That was also kind of a theme, you know, the word profound was thrown out there a couple times in your direction, certainly not mine. But yeah, it is. You don't question why somebody's doing something, because we all do things for different reasons based on our equipment, our facilities, our students, our interests, the restrictions our district has on us. So why people are doing things is going to be very but understanding why they're doing things listening for that, that's when you start to pull out that thought process and the best practices and strategies behind it.
I think you're exactly right. And that's what I hope the listeners can listen for in this next segment, as they're hearing all of us kind of go through what we're doing the first day. And then when we, ask questions of each other, it's the listen behind the thinking and try to pick up what you can. And if something's not for you, throw it away. We're all doing different things on first day and we all have different really priorities. That's what was really interesting to me. We all kind of similar priorities, but in some ways there was quite a few differences. I was surprised. So with that, I hope you can really dig in and enjoy this next segment.
So Lauren, we decided you'd go first.
That's fine. So I'm probably gonna have them come into the gym and do some type of activity. I'm not sure what yet because we still don't know if we can use equipment or what, and then go over our expectations for the classroom procedures, things like that. Obviously go over the mask wearing idea and why we have to do it and that kind of stuff, and then probably end with a team building if we have enough time, of course. End with a team building activity.
And just for people that don't know, Lauren teaches middle school.
Yep.
So
Yep.
grades 6 through 8. And can you take us through some of the thought process as you're kind of considering what you're doing? Why are you choosing those activities in that schedule?
In years before, we've just had them come into the gym. We've gone through our expectations of the classroom changing, all that kind of stuff, and then played a game with them. But because they haven't been in school for so long, like in the building, in a gym, I want to get them moving, active. Obviously, once they're more active, we can kind of settle them down again. They can pay attention a little bit longer to our expectations, go over some of the new rules that we'll have, because it's going to be a little bit longer than what it would normally be, just because I really want them to stay focused, and then end with team building. And I always start off the year with team building just so our class can get to know each other. I can get to know some of the students and things like that. So I always spend the first couple days doing team building anyway. So that's going to be the same. But I just think getting them moving right away in the gym would be good for them.
So say you can use equipment, you just have to clean it between periods. What types of things are you thinking you might get them doing instantly as they come in the door to get them moving?
Well, I was thinking maybe doing some jump rope activities because everyone basically knows how to use jump ropes. I mean, I teach 8th grade, so I'd hope my 8th graders can responsibly use jump ropes. And then I have done in the past the PVC pipe with the golf ball where they have to walk across the gym with it, basically in a group, like them finding a group, and they have to communicate and work together to get without the ball dropping.
Okay.
So I was thinking about that. I mean, a lot of kids have done that one in our school, so I think they should know it, but I don't know. Again, it depends on if we can use equipment, and then yeah. So.
But the PVC pipe and the type of ball you use should be easy to wash.
Yep.
And clean between classes, and so you're really working on getting the kids cooperating and engaged together.
Yes.
And yet, with the PVC pipe, they're staying 6 feet apart. Is that right? Or
yeah, they're long enough where they should be, and only one kid should be holding one of the pipes. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you said you were going to go over expectations.
Yep.
How do you do that? Do you just sit them down and run through?
I'll probably already have my class list split up in like squads, and have their spots marked down on the gym beforehand, so that I can just be like, after we get through those 2 activities, I'll just tell them where they need to sit and be like, this is where you're going to come for attendance each day. This is your spot for now. They're all going to be 6 feet apart. And then kind of go through, we're not going to be changing this year for like obvious reasons. kind of go through that. This is what we're going to do right when we get into class. Just go over some basic classroom procedures, mask wearing, how to treat one another, all that kind of stuff that we normally go through, and then get on to more team building stuff. So
Do you ever use some of that time to have students come up with some of the expectations for class? Or I've heard of some teachers kind of going that route. I'm taking a new class online. It's a start leadership course, and they're kind of talk about having the students have a say in what expectations or where we're headed, that type of thing. Have you ever done that type of thing?
I haven't done that, but I think I might, just to see where their heads are at with like how they want the class to be done, because I'm totally open. I've talked to you guys before. I'm really open to giving them different options, but I kind of want, even if they think of it, I kind of want to guide that conversation of where I want it to lead to, and then have them think of it as it's their own idea, you know?
Mhm.
So, and then obviously, hopefully they'll get more buy-in from that too. So.
Tom, did you have something to jump in on?
Yeah, Lauren's on the right path. I think some of it stems from like responsive classroom. You know, like the idea, and Lauren alluded to this, was that they kind of make their own essential agreements, and hopefully, since they are the ones that kind of took ownership of them, hopefully they'll be followed better than ones that were just directed by the teacher. And like you said, Stacy, I think START, their program, kind of aligns with that too, as far as providing leadership opportunities for the students. And one of those would be, make up your own or create your own essential agreements or classroom rules. That would be a good example of what they consider a small L for leadership opportunity.
Yeah.
I had a whiteboard attached to my cart, and I'm teaching outside because that's what they want us to do in our district. And so we plan on going outside. And so on my whiteboard, I actually put my poster of my rules I teach elementary. And so I have some icons that go with the rules, and we'll kind of go through that and then some activities. But I spent the day spray painting, and I should have worn gloves, but it was a mess. But I spray painted dots, like sit spots or stand spots, and I measured, 6 feet in between. And then we have a track that goes around the schoolyard, and I made stencils out of cardboard and painted a whole bunch of stuff. Like I did big circles that with numbers, so it looks like a phone, so they can do like a phone or an iPad unlock and jump to the spots and do their unlock passcode or their parents unlock passcode. I have places for them to run different pathways, twirling and zigzag jumping, and just like an obstacle course, kind of a sensory motor. And I have it spaced out really far that they could run it like an obstacle course, or I could even probably, there's so much stuff, I just kept going, that I could probably even use that for many things. I could have like 2 students at a station even, and then rotate them, and yet they'd be socially distanced. I'm just trying to pull anything I can think of without equipment. Hurdles, there's hurdles painted so they can run and jump the hurdles even though they're flat on the ground.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, go through some of that. I also watched a lot of like mindful movement stuff that I don't usually have time to do. So I thought we'll do that before we switch PE music classes back to back, and I have to hand sanitize them. So I thought maybe I'd spend maybe a little bit more time cool down, because it's been in the 90s here. It's hot, so they're not going to want to go.
Okay. So break this down as the kids come in or come out, I guess. Talk us through, how is this first day going to look and your thought process behind it? Because this is called Thinking PE Podcast. We want to get into your head a little bit here, going, what are you thinking? How are you going to get the kids from place to place? Why are you choosing the first activity? Why didn't you put that second? Or you know what I mean? We kind of want to get into your head here a little bit, Stacy.
Well, we also do a name game. where we've stood in a circle. I'm sure a lot of you do that, where I stand as the teacher in the middle and we say our first name. I say my Mrs. Lair, but then and then we say like one thing about ourselves and if, like my favorite color is pink. And then anybody else that has a favorite color pink, we switcheroo. But I don't know if we can really do that if we're maintaining 6-foot distancing. So I'm trying to think of how I can do some of that get to know you stuff.
So will that be the first activity to do as you come in? You're going to have them sit in a circle? And
They're probably going to sit in their spot, like just like a spot. I don't even know if I'm going to have assigned. I don't know. I usually have, I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
I usually have assigned, just so for me, so I get to know these kids' names. So this year I'll know most of the kids. I was new last year at my school, but I'll know most of the kids except for the incoming kindergartners. So it'll be easier. So I don't know if I necessarily have to have them in assigned spots, but they can just pick a spot. I don't know.
Okay. Well, those are some good ideas.
I'm also going to grid off the gym floor for when we have inclement weather because I've seen other people. I mean, I've been just looking for ideas from, different teachers and stuff and trying to collaborate. That's why I love this kind of stuff, because it just gets people thinking. But that way, if we have to be inside, they can be in their section. And then we can maybe do, fitness activities, or I even thought about paper, like, because paper's cheap and disposable, like wadding up paper balls, and they can bop it up and do different challenges in their area.
All right. Well, we'll swing back if you get more ideas that come your way. Justin, what are you doing? Have you got your first day planned out yet?
Traditionally, I've always done the squads. So first thing is getting them all in the correct squad sit spot. And then from there, traditionally, and I think I can still kind of do this one, depending on some of the guidelines, we would play a song and we would have the kids move around the room. And of course, that was one to learn how to move around each other. Well, now it's going to be, how do you move around each other with the space?
Yeah.
And maintain it all the time. And then we would stop the music, which would indicate either a freeze or a go back to your spot, which is usually what I use it for, because every time I want to talk, I want them back in a central location. And so I stop the music, then, okay, you still have to maintain that space and get back to your spot and sit down. And so we do that early on, and we, of course, you use the different motor skills to move around, running, skipping, galloping, whatever, and because that gives you an idea of what they can and can't do. I think
now
my
you
spots,
can use the airplane where they put their arms out to add that to help them
exactly
know what 6 feet looks like. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. I think one of the things that I'm going to do differently this year is I'm really leaning towards putting up the alphabet on one wall and numbers on another, and we can play grid games where you give the kid an actual grid and they have to learn how to go there. And so then it helps them learn how to read grids. And so as they come in, you can either tell them, or you can give them a piece of paper that they can now have to wad up and use for whatever game that tells them what grid they're supposed to be in. And so then they have to come in and go find that spot. I've really been fond of actual seat spots, because for me, it makes it so much easier to take attendance. We go over the rules for the gym. They're not allowed to slide on the gym floor. That's, elementary kids like number one thing, right? We got to slide. No, you're not allowed to slide on the floor because my gym floor doesn't like it. And if you slide on my floor and you hit my wall, now you've made two things in my gym mad. And I'm going to keep my gym happy. So you need to make sure you don't do those things. I said, if you slide, you knock somebody down and they fall on the floor, now you've made my floor unhappy twice. And so we attach it back in those kind of terms.
Your kids are going to have nightmares about unhappy gym floors and gym walls.
Yes. Well, I tell them, I said, And the good thing and the bad thing about my gym floor and walls, they will only hit you back as hard as you hit it. And so we kind of play with those kind of terms, analogies, and play with them a little bit there, which keeps their attention, right? With my older kids, traditionally they come in and we have a whiteboard that tells them exactly what they have to go do for the first 10 minutes of class.
Okay.
And so they have a list of activities they have to go boom, 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 which I could easily turn into stations. Go to these stations. Okay, you're here for so long, and then we'll rotate. And most of those things can be done with or without equipment.
And now you've had a lot of those kids, so you're not going to have to spend a ton of time on day one
Right.
reviewing a lot of that, except for a few new.
Yeah, and it's quick hits. And then, like with the younger kids, it's go over a little piece of a rule and then do a movement for a skill or whatever to move and then get back.
Okay.
And so like when we play our normal games, it's the same rule. We want you back on that spot so I can talk to you as fast as I can so that I can get you back into playing.
Yeah. Okay.
How long do you do the stations for your older kids? I'm just curious. When they first
10 to 15 minutes.
Mhm.
But they're all normally because normally they're not a station. It's find a space in the gym and you need to do this activity, this activity, this activity, this activity. But we also, traditionally, again, they come in and put heart rate monitors on.
Right.
And so during that time period, they're also trying to maintain a heart rate while they're doing all those activities.
Right.
Tom, what do you do the first day, and how do you think through your first day, making good use of that time?
Yeah, normally it revolves around how we walk into the gym, where we sit, how we freeze and things like that. But due to now I think it's going to be more like, since we're being told that we're probably going to be going into the classroom, it's going to be more like, okay, how do we do things in the classroom? How do we keep our distance? How are we going to be cleaning things? I think it's going to be more like that instead of the, how do we come in? How do we come out? Just because of, what we're going to be presented with this year.
Yeah.
And, usually you spend at least the first few days, if not the whole first week, especially with elementary kids, primary elementary kids, especially because, you really want to be modeling how you want their behaviors to be, because if you don't, there's no way of going back if you're too lax at the beginning. So you want to be thorough at the beginning, because it's really hard to, halfway through the year to say, hey, we're not doing really good, so let's go back to what we should be doing. And so, yeah, you really need to, I think, be consistent with it at the beginning to hopefully be successful for the whole year.
Yeah. So can you walk us through that? Your first, well, I'm sure it's a little different per grade, but pick a third grade class. They come in. What does this look like? Can you walk us through this lesson? What, day number one? Not generalities, just kind of specifically, what are you going to do with them?
Well, if we're going to be in the classroom,
day one, are you going to be outside?
Well, yeah, probably. So it's probably going to be more of like, how are we going to get, how are we going to move through the hall? How are we going to keep our distance through the hall? How are we going to,
exactly the question I'm asking. Get us thinking on those lines.
Yeah. So, and then when we get outside, how are we going to maintain that outside, and, things like that. So you're right. It'll be more like that, where how are we getting from inside to outside, which I don't know how that's going to look too, because we're being told by our principals that they don't want kids in the hall that much. So, but we're like, well, if we're going to go out, get them outside, how are we going to get them outside without going through the hall? So I'm not sure yet.
So you need that big rope for every class that has the 6 feet tie downs. And so the kid just takes the first in, and the next kid waits until, then I can start, and then keep the rope always tight in the hallway.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
You just can't wash rope. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It could be soggy rope.
Well, you can't sanitize it though, because it
No, you just get one for each class because every time they go somewhere, they got to have a rope for that class. So
that class.
first kid's always first, second kid's always second.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is something if you do it school wide. Yeah. So you get the kids time in class. Let's say the teachers take care of that for you. They get them out and they meet you outside.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're coming out to wherever you are outside. You're probably not right next to the building. So the kids are heading out towards you. Do they have to wear masks?
I'm assuming they will. I'm not sure. We haven't been in conversation. A lot of that will happen next week for us during our workshop week. But I don't know for sure yet if we're outside, if they're going to be required to wear masks. I know obviously inside the building they will be. But kind of like we talked about last week, I don't know what that's going to look like during activity for, like your asthmatic kids and things like that.
Right.
So yeah,
So you got them outside. They're heading towards you. How are you? Are you going to guide them into an instant activity? Or are you going to guide them right to their spots so you can talk to them and set this? Or what are you thinking?
well, I'm thinking more instant activity, just because normally I would have them sit down and they'd be fairly like on a line or something, or but obviously we won't be able to do that now. And I normally have double classes, so that's 50 kids. So I may be forced to do, like you say, like an instant activity just to get them moving and keep them apart. So that's maybe where I'm headed with how I start class. And then how we end class will probably be just, when we're lined up, kind of like Justin said about the rope, maybe, I don't know, and or maybe you can stagger it where they kind of just walk in freely, but they're getting apart, that way. I don't know.
Okay. So you got me. How are you going to give their directions for the instant activity? Are you going to have them stand on a line? Are you going to with dots on that are 6 feet apart, or are you? I mean,
You could do that, or you could you could go. You could maybe meet them in the classroom, and explain what that instant activity is before you go outside.
Okay.
Have the equipment already out there, and then they can maybe get into it right away. The only logistical problem for me would be then if I might have to have my assistant go to the other class and explain it if we're still doing double class. I don't know. Like I said, we haven't been told specifics yet on what it's going to look like. We'll learn a lot of that next week.
okay. But basically, you're wanting to accomplish getting them active.
Yeah.
Are you going to get them into squads? You don't do
Probably
squads at all?
I normally don't do squads.
Okay.
I had thought about maybe starting this year. Normally what I did before the pandemic was to bring them in, sit them down for like 3-4 minutes, give them my directions and get them up moving.
Yeah.
But my directions never lasted more than like 3 or 4 minutes.
When you say bring them in, you just have them sit down?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, just have them sit on a line and
Okay.
say, give the directions really quickly and boom, get them out moving.
Cool. Becky, welcome. I don't know if you're wanting
Hey, Nelson.
to jump in at any point. We're talking about our first day plans. Becky's a high school teacher or a middle school teacher
Let's go.
with Lauren.
Yeah, she teaches with me.
I
I forgot to mention we're all going to be outside for our classes the first couple weeks. So
Okay.
yeah.
So Becky's gonna be outside with you. Anyway, so feel free to jump in at any point, Becky, if you want to share what, you willing to share what you're doing first day, or do you not have that laid out yet?
We don't really have much laid out. I mean, like, I don't know what Lauren said here, but typically I'll do like team building stuff, but we can't really do some of that stuff now. Not as much as, I mean, we can do some, but not everything that I was planning on doing. So
Okay.
that's typically what I do.
Okay. All right. Jamie, do you have your first day laid out yet?
It's up in the air just because we really haven't met with the school as far as what our guidelines. We have a general idea, but just the logistics of moving through the hall and those sort of things really have to get ironed out between us as specialists and the classroom teachers. So we actually have a meeting tomorrow morning to start to hash some of that stuff out.
Okay.
But I think in the immediate, one of the first things we'll probably have to do is spread out our squad spots. You know, our squad spots are a little bit closer so the kids are closer to us to give instruction, and just spread those squad spots out to give that 6 feet distance. And then right away jump into some of those. Traditionally, we did team building activities or just fun games to get the year started, and really want to keep doing those, because the mentality or the approach that I'm taking is, I really think we go to school 3, 4, or 5 weeks, and we're going to get, if there's an increase, we're right at that threshold where we'll go to distance learning. So it's try to maximize that 3, 4 weeks to build as many relationships as we can and have as much fun as we can to kind of propel us into distance learning.
Okay. So when you say those traditional, you know, communication games or get to know you games, or can you break that down in case we don't all have the same idea of what that is?
One that came out there was the minefield, and I think that's one that we can do with the social distancing even. But otherwise, you know, start working on some of those with the younger kids, start working on some of those locomotor skills right away, just to get an idea of where they're at and what we need to work on. Jump rope. So we use those things as instant activities, and with minimal modifications, and we can still do that and respect the health and safety standards set for us.
Okay. So after you get them, their squads are one of the things you want to accomplish that day. You also want to get them having fun together,
yeah,
comfortable together. Any other things you're really hoping to accomplish that day?
And really, I haven't seen the kids since March. So one of my biggest fears is how many names I forgot. And a little bit anxiety comes from that is now the kids have masks on, so I can't even see their face. So it's going to be a challenge, and that's why whatever we do, it's going to revolve around building relationships.
Okay. I know I like to start, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're going to put you in the hot seat now. Buckle up.
I'm usually the one that likes to ask the questions, not answer them. But no, I do love, for whatever reason, red light, green light with this age group. And it's kind of a Simon Says type of thing where I try to trick them. And so you do they can only move when it's green light, and I'll say Green Bay Packers, and then anybody that moved has to go back. And I kind of like to do that. I think I can still do that outside if I have a microphone, and I can spread them out on a line and keep them apart. But I just noticed they just have so much fun because they love to be tricked. And I'm not sure why, but you know, they get almost to the end, and then I'll just say, go, and they'll move, and then they have to go back. And I just found that it's like a bonding moment, that they had so much fun that I could trick them. And I house this in the idea of listening. We need to be good listeners. And I say, how many of you have been, you know, lost your listening skills over the summer because your parents said you're just not good listeners anymore? And they're like, no, we can listen. And so we try it, and obviously they get sent back. And anyway, I like to do that, just plain old-fashioned fun, kind of where I'm still the center point, rather than just having them go and do random activity, or not random, but an activity. From that point, they're used to listening to my voice. Then I sit them down and we get them. I do like squads. And then I like to play a game, especially with the younger kids, where they go out from their squads and then they come back. So I was thinking of what Justin was talking about, where I send them out in moving around in a certain type of direction, doing a bear walk or something else. And then when the music stops, that's a freeze. And then we test, are we 6 feet apart? So you put your arms out, you know, kind of, so we're adding in this distancing part, and then they all come back, and you got to remember where you sat. Now with the kindergartners, if you've taught, you know, that's not a given, that they will all get back, and it might take 4 minutes for everybody, you to get back where their spots are. And so I like to do that kind of thing where they're practicing social distancing. They're going to be practicing finding their spots. And then they go out and come back, and that type of a thing. So I'm hoping what I do in the gym will still work outside. We'll just spread them out further, and with my microphone, I'm hoping that'll still work. So that's basically what I want to accomplish. I want to accomplish having a blast, getting some giggles and some laughs, and having them see me smile and laugh with them, and just that softness I want them to feel about me, that, hey, I'm here to have as much or more fun. And I'll belly laugh, when two kids they tried to stop themselves and then they fall, and I'll go down to one knee laughing, and, purposely just to over dramatize how fun I'm having. And then from there we move on to, the squads and that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of the three main things I want to try to accomplish. So
I would say that's a really good point. I would add to that is I would say one of my personal goals the first week of school is for the kids to feed off my energy and feed off my enthusiasm, not my fear.
Welcome, Jamie. Do you have your first lesson planned?
We started last week.
So that would be a yes.
Yeah.
You want to walk us through and tell us a little bit about what you did your first day, or?
Well, I teach at the high school level. So the first day was getting them accustomed to, in case we go remote, the computers, getting them set up in a PE file, or get them their PE folder, and just through all, I had set up a classroom we use Schoology.
Okay.
So set them up on, my classroom and how it's set up, and let them look through the links and stuff and get accustomed to that. And so that was our first day going through the.
Did they do much for activity that first day, or were they mostly?
No, because, well, they come in and, nobody has PE apparel on. So.
Okay. So you did, that's a good day just to take care of business, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Dress out or no?
What was that, Justin?
There where she's at, are they going to have them start to dress out, or are they going to just come in whatever they're wearing?
We're having them come in with what they're wearing. We recommend appropriate clothing for PE. Just come to school in appropriate. We had trying to avoid locker room because we have so many kids, and with the weights classes and everybody uses the same locker rooms, it was just going to be too many kids in a shared space. And so, the weights kids, they do use because they go very hard. We're trying to minimize, equipment usage. I mean, as far as touching the same equipment in PE.
Hey, Stacy, that last segment, it really did bring out a lot. If you listen closely, it did bring out a lot of the why teachers are setting things up the way they are, why they're playing the specific activities that they're doing. And that was the interesting part for me.
Yeah, it really was, going back, especially we went back and listened to it when we edit, we, get to listen even deeper. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see that in some ways there are some general themes. We've got brand new procedures this year. We need masks and different things we need to teach students. That's going to be very different than for a lot of us. I mean, a lot of us, we normally start in the gym and then take kids outside after we're comfortable that they kind of have those, general procedures in place. But now a lot of us are going to have to start outside right from day one. And we've got these rigid things we've done for years. Why are they rigid? Because they work. And we've done them. And now we're being thrown out of that. And I like what you said. We're kind of questioning about, well, why are you going to do this? You're having to do something different, but why did you choose this? And I like where you're going with that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the teachers, the common theme there is teachers just want to be back with the kids. They want to have fun with them. They want to reestablish those relationships, and that's the why behind their activities. And so it brings up the question, especially if we look ahead and we have the feeling that, you know, we may be on a short window here. We may have 3-4 weeks with these kids. And if COVID cases go up, because, you know, in our state, it's based on the number of cases per 10,000 in your county. So if that number goes up, you get shut down. I mean, just like that. So it's maximizing that time. And that's the why. So, you know, the challenge is, how much time do you want to spend on your rules and expectations when, you know, if you've got fifth graders you've had for 6 years, how much time do you need to spend on those expectations?
Yeah, that's an interesting discussion that kind of came up as we were going over this, is the idea that, yes, kind of the general thought process is any group, you establish group norms, you talk about them, you even have the kids help set them up. But in some ways with elementary PE teachers, it's a unique situation where you've seen them for 3-4 years already. They kind of know what your expectations are. That's a little different than the situation you're setting up with, do we wear a mask, do we not wear a mask, how do we line up? You know, those things are, we call them what, procedural type things.
Yeah.
Those things you're going to have to go over, you know, or it's going to be disaster. But as far as overall expectations, I don't know. I'm up for the discussion that, yeah, we don't need to spend a lot of time there. Let's dig in. Let's have the kids have a blast that first day, dive right into having a good time, and establish that as the expectation. So when they come to gym, they know they're going to be pumped, they're going to be excited, they're going to be having fun. And yeah, we're going to sneak some learning in there that they don't even probably know about.
You know, and my rationale behind it is just maximize your time. You know, if you have a 30-minute class and I can get back 5 more than minutes without going over so deep into the expectations and rules of that sort, and just get more time playing with the kids. You know, also with the idea that usually at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to set up the culture and the expectations for the rest of the school year, but we don't know what the rest of the school year is going to look like. It could be
Right.
just learning in 3 to 4 weeks. So part of me is I've got 4 weeks here to mold my culture and build relationships again to kick us off into distance learning.
For sure. And if you don't do that, you're going to really be struggling getting kids engaged from a distance, instead of go feeding off that relationship that you've been building, and the expectation that, hey, everything Mr. Stedniak comes up with is a blast. So I can't wait to get online and see what he's got planned for us. So I agree with you. It's important, those two main things for sure.
You know, and bring back the growth mindset here. If there's ever a time for change or to implement or try something new, I mean, now's the time. This is it. This is a perfect opportunity, because there's going to be so much change. And number one, you have to be willing to fail.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
That's not a bad thing. It's
No.
Some of your greatest accomplishments in life come from your failures. And it's more important what you do. What did you learn? How did you adjust after you made that mistake and move forward? And I think that's going to be very important this year is be willing to try new things, keep that growth mindset, and see where it goes. But this is a great opportunity to change, because ironically, this next segment coming up here, it challenges some of the rigidity of things that we've done for 25 years. Because like you said, it works, and if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But now some of those great things that we did over the course of our careers, now all of a sudden your lineup procedures may not fit into your district's health guidelines.
So you're going to be forced to do something new. So why not? Yeah, think through it. Talk to other PE teachers. Get brainstorm. Find something that's out of the box, and you might just stumble upon something you keep using when things do get back to whatever normal is going to be. So this next segment, it's kind of a hodgepodge of different topics, but it initially starts with this idea that, yeah, I got to do something different, and what am I going to do? And it's kind of a fun segment to listen to. Take a listen.
Yeah, I'm going to have to just be more strict, I think, outside. And I hate to be so strict, because like you said, trying to build these relationships, and because we haven't seen them since March, and they're going to be excited to be back, and I want them to feel safe and that it's okay to have fun. And
But in some ways, you're going outside, so you don't have to be as strict. Am I right? You know
Well,
what I mean?
they want us to be outside just because of the social distancing and not in a gym. And they do not want us to wear masks. So my concern is if we are inside and getting our heart rate up and all the, extra breathing with no masks in a confined space, I'm like, well, that can't be good. I mean, that's almost counterintuitive. I don't know. It's funny because it's just different. It's different, not even state to state. Even in our state of Wyoming, it's different. Like every district has different rules.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Wear masks, some don't wear masks. And so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's why we're having these conversations, so people can meet others that have the same rule.
I guess for me, we're not using equipment that much because our schedule is back to back. And so we don't have time to follow this district's sanitizing protocol. And I thought, I don't want to be liable for using soccer balls and then not spraying them down when my kids are literally passing as class comes in, one comes out. So I made the decision myself. And a lot of us that, in the district that had principals that did not comply to give us space to sanitize. Well, then I feel like what else can we do but try to use minimal equipment? Then there's other schools in the district that they gave them 15-minute blocks to sanitize, or, they were creative with the scheduling and, and did things different. And so it just it's all over the place.
Okay.
Start Monday with kids.
Okay. Justin, what were you going to comment on that?
Well, I just had a question that went back to, and again, it's not a complaint, it's a question. Why? If traditionally you would want to make sure you got the rules and make sure everything is ready to flow and move smoothly, would you change to thinking that you can just go with a straight activity that the kids are going to be able to pick up?
No, I don't think I could.
Yeah, but in our conversations before you got here, that was, some people were going that direction and some people have picked this one. And so that was my question kind of in general to everybody, because some of them were like, well, traditionally we would do the more stance of let's get everything regimented a little bit, make sure we get the rules in, make sure we whatever. And some were like, we're going to throw it all out because we haven't been doing anything and I'm just going to have the kids go move.
I agree with Tom. I mean, you got to start really strict, I think, at the beginning because there's no going back. Then they just think that that's how your class is. And if you try to reel them in later, it just doesn't work. I mean, I'm old. So this is going to be my 25th year. And so I've learned that, the hard way, where I've started out a little more lax and it's just hard to reel them in. So, and I like Stacy's idea too. Maybe I've always did the rules all together and then we did movement activity, but I think I might try that this year where they're sitting. I'd maybe talk about one rule. I think I have 5 that are listed with pictures and everything, but I might do one rule, then do, a movement challenge where they have to go somewhere and come back. Do you remember where you sit? And then maybe I'll try a second rule and then just so I'll get all my rules in for the day and what's expected, but then also get movement. So they're not sitting there listening to me talk for 6 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes.
Right.
That's boring.
I like it. I like the thought we're going through here. It's kind of coming around.
Casey, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what you had mentioned last week, and I thought it was quite profound, was, whatever situation that they tell us that we're going to be in, because I know a lot of people are being asked to go into the classroom and maybe not teach their subject area and help with small groups and whatnot. But I really thought it was wonderful that you said, well, if they're going to ask you to, make the best of whatever situation they put you in. So bring the most energy, the most enthusiasm, because we know those are both infectious. So if they're going to ask you to work with small groups, be creative and come up with ways that you can, incorporate physical activity into whatever they're asking you to do. Along with, bringing a good attitude to it and making the best of it is don't forget about our SEL lessons for these students right now too, because those are going to be more important than ever.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. And not only for the students, but I think in some ways I feel unique. I have a certain amount of pressure here, but kind of like Jamie was saying, I kind of know that, yeah, I might be uncomfortable, but I've done this long enough now. You could throw 30 kindergartners at me right now and I could figure something out on the fly. We'll get through it. I think Jamie you're kind of saying that, yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be stressful. We'll get through it. But classroom teachers have a lot of stuff being thrown at them, and they always do. The standards and there's just more pressure on them, and we can bring that lightness to the staff, to the not like haha it's stuff on you not on us lightness, but the idea of lighten the kids up, joke around in the hallway, be that fun presence that's kind of just they just know when they see you they're going to feel just a little bit lighter just for a moment even. And if we can kind of bring that to our staff, and that's part of doing things well. We're going to do our part, and we're going to do our part well, and you know what, maybe we step out and we do more than our part and not have one of those syndromes where we only, oh, that's not my job. Well, you know what, there's going to be things that are brand new that are nobody's job. we're gonna have to just
I clean tables at lunch.
There you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You probably put a smile on somebody's face by doing it. Yeah.
I know there's other teachers, I don't think any of us on here, but there's other teachers that are being required not to raise the kids' heart rate.
I've heard that.
So they're supposed to come into the classroom or the kids come into the gym, but they're not allowed to do activities. And so these teachers were like, oh my goodness, but that's what we do. But, I saw some really, good attitudes with, you know what, we never seem to have enough time to teach nutrition and other like health and safety of our body. And some of these things that are, and like you said, Tom, like social emotional learning and some of these other things that, because we have to get all of our other movement standards and things. And so I'm like, when I am stuck inside or limited space or whatever, maybe those are some of the things I'm going to try to do more of, because I always seem to not have enough time. And I thought, wow, that was really good attitude of some of those teachers that, they're really having to stretch their creativity because, if you can't really move and get your heart rate up, well, that's what we do.
That's growth mindset at its best there.
So
you've been teaching for about a week? You said?
Yeah.
Can you think of anything little tips or hints or things that you could throw our way so we don't stumble where you did, or any stories like I'll never do that again or anything like that for us? Help us out.
Yeah. You just got to go with the flow. Things are going to happen and it will seem so overwhelming, but you will get through it.
Okay.
And
that's a good word.
Yeah, it is. I would say, doing the Google Meets for the first time with kids, because I teach in person and then I have 7 remote classes that I'm supposed to. So my prep time is with the Google Meets, and for the first time doing those, it was just getting used to it. And so I think the kids appreciate that, it's new for you too. How is some technical difficulties will happen.
Okay.
So
how's the social distancing going at the high school level?
Social distancing.
During PE.
During PE. So we have them spread out. They added a new PE teacher to try and minimize the numbers for me because I was just one teacher. We've got about 200 that are in person and then 50 that I'm doing with remote. And so I marked the bleachers. So they're 6 feet apart in the bleachers. And so we meet there And then from there, the kids move to their spot on the floor. So first row goes, then the third row goes, then the fifth row goes, and then the seventh row goes out onto their spots on the floor. So we're keeping them 6 feet apart
Okay.
everywhere.
Okay.
And we're doing our fitness testing this week. So when we get outside, you know, they can take off their masks when they're physically active, and when they're not, they put the mask on unless they can stay 6 feet apart.
Okay. Have you discovered anything that really looked good on paper in the lesson plan, and then you got there and you went, oh, wow, we totally overlooked this?
Yeah. Well, I started out with HyperDoc so I could keep my kids for the fitness testing. So my kids at home could see how it's done and how they could do it at home. And my kids in school could also have that same information. So everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
My kids in school, when we walked them through it and they were opening up the documents in it, they were able to get on there just fine. It was the kids at home that were having a problem, and they were having to ask permission
Okay.
to access the information. And
Yeah.
so I think that was more of an issue with Schoology or the internet or something. But by the second and third days, so I got like, it seemed like 20 emails from kids at home asking for permission for stuff. And I'm like, by second period, I'm freaking out going, what's going on? And, but by day 2 and 3, that settled down, and so everybody was able to get on. So I will say, having kids that are at home remote, walking through with them how to get on and be able to show their work they present. So they're showing the other kids that can't get on at that time what it looks like has really helped. So the kid is actually presenting what it looks like from their side.
Okay.
So when you record the video and they get on and see it later when they're available, that seems to help walk the kids through.
Nice.
Yeah.
Justin, go ahead.
Interesting one that happened this last week. So we're basically the first week of school. So it's the first time you're going to see the kids. Our entire building went down. No internet. while you're in class. Boop,
Yes.
done. Right. So the cool thing that happened for me and within our building, so one of our first grade teachers, we have to record everything. And so it's still recording even though we're down. And so that was a cool thing to find out through the Google that it's doing that. So we were able to go back and watch the kids and see how they reacted and what happened when we weren't there and the conversations they took place. And so like in the first grade class, there was one of the kids, which he was a repeat kindergartner. So he's a little bit older than everybody else, but he's always been a handful, right? He's in class trying to get everybody together. Okay, this is what we got to do. And I think this is how we need to, whatever, And that was hilarious to watch him be the one trying to be in charge.
Yeah.
Basically the first time even most of those kids had been in this year together in a room.
That's right.
And so that was really cool. But then you also got the realization of first graders there was one parent that had a clue what was going on. Most of the other ones, there was no parent anywhere around while they're there. And then in my class, I had older kids and we had just started, I said, well, we're going to go through our Google Classroom. We're going to go through our assignments. How do you log into all the different things we're going to use? That was what we had talked about. And this was like Thursday of last week. And so a couple of kids were like, are we going to go over one of the assignments on how you log in and do it? And I said, yeah. I said, that's what we're going to do. And hopefully you get that done. And two of them were like, we already did that because it's been posted all week, right? So when we dropped and I was gone, they had a conversation back and forth for a little while. But then those two, along with other kids, said, hey, we know this is what we need to do. Teach us how to do it. And they started sharing their own screens.
Fantastic.
And, well, this is how this assignment's done. And this is, that was a good thing to see that they're not going to just totally fall apart. But those were processes that, you hadn't thought about. Hey, when we are in a meet and it drops and we can't get back, I right quick opened my phone up and downloaded the Google Classroom onto my phone and walked outside and was able to get back into the room, within, a little bit. But I told them, I said, you guys are doing good. I'm going to get back off, finish explaining the thing. You're doing awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll, pick you back up as soon as I can get back on.
Yeah. That's kind of to Jamie's point. It really helps when those kids are leading themselves.
Yeah. And that's how you have to build your classes. I mean, I've always built mine that way. You guys have to be responsible for yourselves and others around you. And being mad or yelling at each other is never going to get us anywhere. And so that's one of the things we talk about. How do you communicate with others to help get things done? And so we talk about that all the time. So it was really nice to see that actually take place with those older kids online.
That's awesome. Jamie, I found it fascinating to listen to Stacy process through that whole piece of, she started by telling us about how she was painting her fields and she could do this activity, that activity, and she was going all over the place with all these great ideas she had, but she really hadn't narrowed it down yet as to what exactly she was going to do, how she was going to have the kids come in, she was just like a head full of ideas. And then it was like she was listening and bouncing ideas and talking. It just seemed like she used this group in that time to just kind of trickle down to, by the end, she's like, oh, maybe if I just did this, I'll go do this activity, and then I'll have them, I'll go through one role, then I'll go do another activity. And it just all of a sudden seemed like she was very calm about, yeah, I like this. I guess it was just fun to see her use the PE group, use her peers to really develop. And in the meantime, she gave us a ton of ideas at the same time.
I think that's a great point that you made. Well, we'll call it a profound point that you made again there. But it is true. Just how we're going to have to rely on our peers. Whether you're in a podcast or a Zoom meeting with us, or your meetings with your other specialists or people in your building, but you're going to have to bounce ideas. You're going to have to, and like I talked about in the last section there, where you have to be willing to make mistakes and have somebody to process those mistakes. And how can I improve this? What are you doing over there? And draw from that common knowledge. Yeah.
And they won't always be mistakes. You just might decide to do it different the next time, but you need to be willing to make those mistakes, to your point. The next piece that really jumped out at me was that section in the middle that they were talking about growth. They didn't say growth mindset, but Tom was kind of leading into it by saying, man, we might get stuff thrown at us. It might not happen the way we want it to. We might be asked to do things we're not asked to do. You might be asked not to teach PE, but to teach something else. You might be asked to do kitchen duty or so. I don't know. But the idea is, well, then we're going to do a great job with it. Or I think it was Stacy that brought it up that, if you're put inside so many restrictions that you're not even supposed to get the kid's heart rate up, what does she say? Well, then we'll teach health. And that's a great thing, because we often can't teach health because we're so busy with our other things. And I just love how it's that mindset of, well, then we'll do the next best thing and it'll be great. I don't know.
I absolutely agree. And I hope that's my personality is no matter what challenge you throw at me, I'm going to give you my best. And it may not be something that I necessarily like or agree with, but given the circumstances, I think we're going to all find ourselves in different positions. And, there's some different ways to put it out there. Some are cleaner than others, but at the end of the day, you make a lemonade out of lemons. Or I see there's some other ones that maybe we'll keep those for a different podcast.
Yeah. It was kind of fun what Jamie brought with, because she's already started teaching, and she kind of just brought this idea that, you'll get through it. just remember, don't get freaked out, because things are going to tumble. Things are not going to go well. Things are, a lot will go well, but there's going to be some things that don't. And she's like, just remember, you're going to live through it. You're going to go home that night and you're going to see your family, or you're going to, whatever you're going to then come back the next day and try again. And it maybe isn't as dramatic as maybe it feels like in the moment. I used to have back in college, I had a football coach that a line he used that sticks with me to this day is, nothing is ever as good or as bad as at first it seems. So we'd come in at halftime and we're down 22-0. That's what he'd say. We'd come in at halftime, we're up 22-0. That's what he'd say. It's kind of been something that's stuck with me for 30 years. It's that idea that, usually, 3 years from now, I'll look back on this and I won't have these emotions. And so if we kind of put yourself in the future a little bit, calm down, realize, I think that was good advice by Jamie that she kind of put that out there. So,
I was going to add with the growth mindset and just the adjustment on flying, going back to the days in the military, is you would plan, some operations you would plan for days or weeks ahead of time and plan every detail to a T, but none of those plans lasted the first engagement. And because you put so much thought in the process, in the planning, you're able to adjust off that plan. And I think it's similar here is we can have we can map out our first month of school and put a lot of, but it's not going to last that first, we'll call it the first engagement. There's going to be change. But because we put that thought process in there and put all that detail in, it'll give us the tools to adjust, and there's only a couple things that are certain. Number one, we're going to have to pay taxes. I mean, that's a certainty. Number two, technology is going to fail. And number three, you're going to have something really cool planned and it's going to rain. So it's just being able to adjust.
No, and I think that kind of leads into what we're talking about several times in this podcast. If you know the why, then you can adapt your plan pretty easy and keep the focus, and you won't get distracted and lose the whole point of your lesson. All of a sudden you have to starts raining, you have to go inside. You can, if you know why you were doing the activities outside, you can shift to inside and still accomplish what you needed to accomplish. It'll be just use different activities. That's all. So I really like that thought process. And I like the example you gave about the military, because it's got to be true. You can't plan for every detail when you're making those plans and I don't know what you call them, the strategies you use to maneuver
Well, truthfully,
different people.
The why comes in there. The most important part of an op order is the commander's intent. What's the mission?
Yeah.
What's the intention? What's the why? And if you know the why, then you can adjust accordingly. Yeah,
I think that's a fabulous illustration of what we're talking about. Before we get to the end, I don't want to miss that part at the end where they're talking about kids helping kids. It was a super encouraging segment for me to listen to, where, these kids will often, they know what each other's going through. And they stepped up when the technology wasn't working, or like in Justin's case, and certain kids will just really be there to help the other kids. And maybe we can really, once we get a little bit comfortable, it might not be day one, but maybe as we get into a week or two, you can start looking for those kids and really create some leadership opportunities for them to help you in certain ways that, we don't even know what they would be, but just to kind of keep that in the back of our minds of, how can I use kids to teach kids? How can I use kids to give leadership positions? Any thoughts come to your mind as you were listening to that segment?
I mean, the thought is 3 letters, SEL. I mean, that right there seems like a great way to implement some of that social emotional learning, empowering kids. And I think that's going to be so important this year.
No, I agree. Wow. Well, we're kind of coming to the end here. Let's try to sum this up. We've been talking about over and over and over. We keep coming back to this idea of knowing the why versus just knowing what you're going to do. So I don't know. I was trying to think of a statement that would kind of wrap this up. It kind of comes down to this: knowing what you're going to do for your first day is not nearly as important as knowing why you're doing what you're doing that first day.
That is a profound statement, Stacy. And that is thinking PE.